Since it's in my son's name, it's obviously my house too. Oof. After a year of work, the house with a garden was finally completed. My mother-in-law was running around with a look on her face as if her own castle had been completed. Apparently she had sold her parents' house, and had arrived with a truck full of large items. Next to her, Akiyoshi shouted proudly, "Mom, put your things over there. Oh, you can use the kitchen as you like." Quote. I watched in silence. Cardboard boxes piled up, furniture and appliances brought in one after another. A cold laughter welled up from the bottom of my heart as they acted as if this was really their home. Akiyoshi continued, looking around the living room. "Mom, let's get this guy out of here. Let's live happily just with our family." That's right. Now I'm finally going to have to watch my daughter-in-law's face every day. My mother-in-law continued to fight back. I smiled slowly at her words. Then I took a step forward and quietly told her. She was just about to leave. Their faces disappeared in an instant. I had a small suitcase in my hands. Everything was as planned. My name is Mina and I am 27 years old. I grew up in an environment that was a little different from an ordinary family. When I was still a child, a fisherman and I both ended up like this in an unfortunate accident. My memories of that time are fragmented and the confusion and sadness are not clear at all. Now I can't even remember my parents' faces. I was raised by my older brother and sister, who are much older than me. My older brother and sister are twins, but their personalities are surprisingly opposite. Kiyoshi is quiet and deep-seated. He had a mysterious sensibility that seemed to distance him from the world. He is now a university researcher pursuing a rare field called religious psychology. On the other hand, my older sister Riko is a passionate and energetic person. She became a mother at a young age and is now raising 5 children with her husband, who is self-employed. I grew up safely under the care of these 2 people, and what I was most passionate about was drawing. I loved the moment when I ran a pen through pure white hair and breathed life into it. Naturally, I aimed for beauty, but reality was not so sweet. At one point, I didn't even pass the exam and my dream was quickly shattered. I decided to go to a general university while crying, but I couldn't stop drawing. So, on the side of my studies, I started doing freelance illustration work. I had no fame or income, but the time I spent drawing was my salvation. Shortly after graduating from university, I met Akiyoshi, who would later become my husband. It all started when we had a meal together, introduced by an acquaintance. My first impression was that he was a gentle and caring person. Even though it was our first time meeting, Kiyoshi listened to my small efforts and worries. Sometimes it's scary to think that it might not be rewarded. Being scared is proof that you are trying. I think those words saved me. Soon after that, we started dating, and we smoothly got married. A new life, a new family. I felt like I had finally found my place. However, it didn't take long for that little happiness to crumble with a sound. It was soon after we got married that I was made to realize how little independence Kiyo had. That morning, he was standing there in front of the closet. "What's wrong? Which shirt do you think I should wear today?" I thought he was joking and almost laughed, but Akiyoshi's expression was completely serious. He asked me about the menu for breakfast, the lunchbox, and even what I wanted to eat for dinner. Every time, I answered while holding back a sigh. At first, I thought it was cute. But one night, something unbelievable happened. Akiyoshi was sitting on the sofa and muttered into his smartphone. I want to eat mom's food. Mom's food? I just made it. Oh, mom's food is so rich. Mom's is delicious too, but it's mom's after all. His voice was cheerful and out of sorts, as if he had no ill will. And a few minutes later, the intercom chime rang. Standing at the entrance was my mother-in-law, Tatsuki. Quote, I came here quickly to bring you something because you said you wanted to eat. Saying this, my mother-in-law handed me a Tupperware filled with stews and fried foods. The phrase, a blessing in disguise, crossed my mind. My mother-in-law entered the kitchen without permission, and as if it were natural, she pushed my food aside and started to arrange her own food on the table. Akiyoshi happily reached for his chopsticks, but didn't touch any of the food I had made. But my mother-in-law's interference didn't end there. The suit I picked out for Akiyoshi the other day looked good on him, didn't it? What? Of course it was my mother. Akiyoshi has no sense of fashion. I always pick out his clothes and socks. My mother-in-law said this with a laugh, and I could only respond with a bitter smile. It was as if she was imagining the relationship between a small child and his mother. It was hard to believe that this was the relationship between a 35-year-old man and his mother. I felt something quietly awakening inside me. Even so, somewhere in my mind, I still hoped that I might be able to fit in with this family. It would be a while before I realized how foolish such a naive hope was. It was one day when I returned home from a business meeting. The moment I stepped into the living room, a strange sense of discomfort enveloped me. What? My bag is gone. The brand bag that I had definitely placed on the shelf next to the entrance has disappeared. The jewelry case that was displayed on the shelf has also disappeared. Feeling uneasy, I searched the house and bumped into my mother-in-law standing in the hallway in front of my room. Of course, it was a surprise visit. Because Akiyoshi had given her the picture, my mother-in-law had come into the house without permission. Oh, welcome back. I was just cleaning. Cleaning? It's obviously unnatural to call it cleaning. My personal belongings have been left in the closet and cupboard and organized without my permission. I don't know where my bag or jewelry are. Ah, that's it. My mother-in-law continued nonchalantly to me, who was at a loss for words, that she had thrown them away. You don't use them anymore, do you? I made a lot of pocket money when I sold them on the Flim app. You sold them without permission? The moment I raised my voice, Ayoshi appeared in the living room. It seemed that she had witnessed my mother-in-law's rampage. Come on, there's no need to get so angry. I didn't need it. It's mine. Get rid of it as you please. And what about the proceeds? We're family, so I won't be picky. I tried my best to suppress my anger with trembling hands. But it didn't end there. To add insult to injury, my mother-in-law said with a cool face, Momoko-san, you're living with Akiyoshi, so you should be patient with a little. My mind went blank involuntarily. I also earn an income from my art job, and I'm not being supported by Akiyoshi. I realized that it was useless to say anything to this person who still thought of me as an unnecessary member of his son's family. Give it back. What the hell do you think you are? It's embarrassing for a wife to go against her husband's family. Akiyoshi nodded with a grin. It's your fault. It's unthinkable that you would go against your mother. I was speechless and stared at the two of them in silence. Only a cold emotion, different from anger or sadness, spread through my heart. At that moment, I vowed to myself, I would definitely get free from this house. And I'll make sure those two get their revenge. It was a few years after we got married that the topic of buying a home came up. With a list of housing information specialists lined up on the table in the living room, Akiyoshi and his mother-in-law were chatting away. Mom, what do you think of this writing site? Look, it's spacious and has a garden. It's nice. I wanted a garden for my grandchildren to play in when I'm old. They were as if they were building a house themselves. There was no room for me to intervene. Yes, do as you like. Still, I was quiet inside. It was enough that I had a small workroom to paint. I no longer expected anything from the two of them, who were immersed in the fantasy of being a family. Akiyoshi was pleased that I didn't argue, and he became more and more arrogant. It's natural to decide on new furniture and interior colors in consultation with Mom. Momoko has no sense, so don't interfere. He spoke with a grin. I looked at Ayoshi with a blank look. My mother-in-law also spoke as if it was a matter of course. A wife should just shut up and follow what the men decide. What do these people really think of me? From then on, Akiyoshi was the king of the house. If I did anything to offend him, he would immediately pull out the completed divorce papers from the table drawer and throw them in front of me. If you don't listen to me, it's a divorce. That's right. Every time this happened, I silently picked up the divorce papers and put them back in the drawer. On the surface, I didn't resist, pretending to calmly obey, but I was steadily preparing for the future. Because I know that timing is everything in a battle. I'll keep increasing their numbers like this. And the moment the best stage is set, I'll turn it over all at once. After a year of construction, the small house with a garden was finally completed, and the exterior is simple but somehow warm in design. The scent of a new building was spreading on the spring breeze. However, I couldn't say that my heart was clear on this day. Because my mother-in-law came to visit on the day of the handover. Since it's in my son's name, it's naturally my house too. Oofufu. My mother-in-law looked as if she had completed her own castle. It seems that she had sold her parents' house, and she had arrived with a truck full of large luggage. Next to her, Akiyoshi shouted proudly, quote, "Mom, put your luggage over there. Oh, you can use the kitchen as you like." I watched in silence. Cardboard boxes piled up, furniture brought in one after another. A cold laughter welled up from the bottom of my heart as they acted as if this was really their home. Akiyoshi continued, looking around the living room. Quote, "Mom, let's get this guy out. Let's live happily just with our family. Right. Now I'll finally have to wait and see how my daughter-in-law reacts." My mother-in-law continued to refuse to be outdone. I smiled slowly at her words. Then I took a step forward and quietly told her. She was just about to leave. The smiles disappeared from both of their faces in an instant. I had a small suitcase in my hand. Everything was going according to plan. Good luck. With that, I left the house to kill him. I felt my mother-in-law's gaze on my back as she stood there dumbfounded at the front door, so I got into a taxi, took out my smartphone, and headed to the luxury hotel I had booked. I'm going to use that as my base for a while. The sweet driver spoke softly to me. Are you moving? Yes, it's a bit of a life move. Looking out the window at my house receding into the distance, I secretly vowed. This is the beginning of the real counterattack. The next night, I was quietly sipping tea in a suite at a luxury hotel when Soriyoshi and my mother-in-law, who were in a state of chaos, burst into me. The hotel door was violently locked, but I calmly responded without batting an eye. Who is it? It's me. Open up. We're in the tea time after dinner. Don't mess around. I have something to talk to you about right now. I had no choice but to open the door, and the two of them came rushing in with their faces red with anger. What happened to you two? I asked coolly. Then, Tatsuki raised his voice. It's nothing. What is that? Those crazy people. Oh, Yoshi joined in, too. Are your family members crazy? That's going too far. I blinked slowly once and fainted quietly. It was all as planned. In fact, I had contacted Kiyoshi and Riko before leaving the house yesterday. I truly understood that the only people I could rely on in the event of an emergency were my family, and they were my strongest allies. On the day of the move, Kiyoshi and Riko headed to the new house as I was leaving for the hotel, of course without informing my mother-in-law and Akiyoshi. The uninhibited saviors entered the defenseless new house. In order to see the whole scene, I had already installed a surveillance camera in advance. I was monitoring it carefully while enjoying the hotel room service. I see. That must have been difficult. When I spoke as if it was someone else's problem, Akiyoshi's face turned red and he barked. It's more than difficult. There's something wrong with your family. I watched the monitor while trying to hold back my laughter. I remembered a ridiculous scene. It was right after Akiyoshi and his mother-in-law had started moving into their new home. The doorbell rang and Akiyoshi was in a bad mood and on his limit. Who could it be at a time like this? When he opened the door, Rinko was standing there with a big smile on her face. And behind her were 5 lively children and several more mommy friends and their children celebrating their move. Oh, thank you. Akiyoshi responded with a forced smile. He didn't like girls who were easygoing and charming. Usually, he would just say hello and leave, but that day was not so easy. The children lined up in a row and the mommy friends and their children flowed into the house one after another. The living room was in chaos in an instant. Everyone can do as they please. Momoko said so too. Wait a minute. What Rinko said was true. She had given permission in advance to do anything outside of the writing room. The kids quickly raided Akiyoshi's treasured hobby shelf. Limited edition figurines were scattered on the floor, and trading cards were waiting like a god blizzard. The high-end furniture brought in by her mother-in-law was also touched and climbed by the children of her mom friends, and in no time, countless small scratches were engraved on it. Stop it, that was expensive. No one stopped even when she screamed. On the contrary, the mom friends took drinks and snacks out of the refrigerator without permission, and were in full-on shoe mode. Wow, what an amazing picture. The furniture is also new, so I'm jealous. This TV is also the latest model. While her mother-in-law was grimacing, the mom friends explored the house as they pleased. They opened drawers and scattered the sweets they had praised. Of course, they were behaving in an unreasonable manner on purpose. They are usually polite and kind people. Stop it. This is my house. Akiyoshi's little lecture did not reach anyone. Rinko's children pulled me by the hand and pushed me down onto the sofa, saying, "Let's play together." The party continued even at night, and the living room where the family should be relaxing was so messy that there was no room to walk. The interior decorations and tableware brought in by Rinko's mother were used without permission, and they were so violent that there was no time to scream. Looking at it through the monitor, I quietly put down my tea. It's better than I expected. A feeling of finally being able to get revenge swells in my chest. If you think about how much they've done as they pleased up until now, this is a natural punishment. And this hell is just a small reward. Thinking back to the monitoring footage, I look at Akio and my mother-in-law again, with messy hair and tired expressions. Both of them have bags under their eyes and their clothes are somehow tight. Yes, that happened. That must have been hard. I pretended not to know anything and listened with a smile, but my mother-in-law approached me with the force of fighting the table. I took a sip of tea in front of the two, trembling with anger, and although I spoke in a clearly deliberate tone, it seemed that the two of them didn't even have the time to point that out. The kids were running around as they pleased, scratching the furniture and breaking the dishes. "You almost put it out, didn't you? You should pay for it all." "That's right." All my rare cards and figurines were ruined. But is that really the sincerity of my sisters? I asked, and just then Rinko from the tower appeared from behind. She had come to check on the situation after the attack. Rinko, who had seen the recorded camera footage, was laughing loudly next to me. "Don't say such nasty things. Wasn't it broken from the beginning? Do you have proof that we broke it?" With a bright, innocent smile, Rinko sat down at the table. Akiyoshi's face turned red in an instant. "It wasn't broken until you guys came." "But do you have any photos or videos?" Akiyoshi was completely overwhelmed by Riko's cool face as she continued to press on. Her mother-in-law was also biting the innermost part of the room. Neither of them knew that I had filmed part of the attack on Rinko's family on the security camera. "So what happened? Didn't your sisters go home yesterday?" When I urged her to continue, my mother-in-law's face twisted. "They went home at night. But then some more troublesome people came." I gave a small fist pump in my heart. Yes, this is where the real action begins. Wow. Some troublesome people. Who were they? I'm really curious. Akiyoshi and my mother-in-law exchanged hopeless looks as Rinko and I overreacted to them. Of course I know. Soon my mother-in-law spat out that another Kyuseikyuichi had sent in the next test customer. This time, in the middle of the night, some unknown people came. I stopped holding the cup and pretended to be surprised. Wow, that was scary. Akiyoshi continued with a pale face. They said that some strange people in white clothes came to purify the house, and I gave a small fist pump in my heart. Finally, it was Kiyochi's turn. As he specializes in religious psychology, he was a genius when it came to this kind of rule. He also had connections with such believers as research subjects. At first, I thought it was a housewarming gift. But then he started saying strange things like, if you buy this vase, it will bring good luck to your family, or if you donate it to the cult, your family will be protected, and even though I refused, he put the vase on the floor without permission and yelled at me not to move it. And that's not all. He said that this vase was a special, purified item, so if I moved it, the purification would melt, and when I tried to move it, my mother-in-law shook her lips. You've done it. You've polluted it. You have to pay for it. She charged me hundreds of thousands of yen. Rinko and I looked at each other and rolled our eyes. Wow, that must have been tough. That's terrible. It's a new kind of scam. It was hard not to laugh inside. As for Rinko, she was already shaking her shoulders. After that, she kept chanting something like a sutra all night long. To be honest, the kids were better off. Even when I tried to sleep, I was scared because the pillow book whispered about the awakening of the soul. It was too good to be true that the earnest brother of S. Salvation gathered suspicious followers and gave my mother-in-law and Akiyoshi a night of hell. So, what happened to those people? Akiyoshi and my mother-in-law looked at each other and then sighed at the same time. They finally left just now. They left an ominous parting shot that they'll come back because they don't have enough skin. Rinko and I took a sip of cold tea, exclaiming in a voice that was similar to yesterday's. That was hard. Really? I didn't expect Rinko and Kiyoshi to act so perfectly. But all of this is the price I paid for the time I've been silently enduring these past few years. It's your doing. There's nothing to say to us. I smiled innocently at my mother-in-law who was yelling. Hey, Mom, should I tell you something good to apologize? Something good. Yes, who is the owner of that house, and whose land is it on? Don't you want to know the truth? My mother-in-law looks at me with a shocked face. Next to her, her eyes wander uncomfortably. Of course it's in Akiyoshi's name. Too bad. I bought that house in my sole name. The air in the room froze. What are you talking about? Cowardly lighting. It's my house. You guys just brought your belongings into someone else's house without permission. You had no right to complain in the first place. My mother-in-law's face changes. It's a lie. That can't be true. I shrugged my shoulders. It can be true. I've been lying to Mom all this time. That I'm an unsuccessful illustrator. In reality, I earn dozens of times more than Akiyoshi. Yes. Of course Akiyoshi knows this too. He pretended to be supporting me because he wanted to look good in front of his mother. Don't mess with me. It's all a joke. Ignoring Akiyoshi, who started yelling in a panic, I quietly stood up and pointed a web page at them on my smartphone. On it was the profile of manga artist Yamamoto. Higashiyama is my savior. Higashiyama is my pen name. Well, you may not know this, but I'm a manga artist. My mother-in-law turned pale, and Akiyoshi was at a loss for words, his mouth opening and closing. I say this, but I earn more than you think. I told him my annual income in a matter-of-fact manner. It was all my hard work that allowed me to buy that house in one lump sum. But, you always wore cheap clothes, didn't you? Right. I just made it plain on purpose because I didn't want to be noticed by a mainstream person like you. I did buy high-end bags and jewelry, though. I put my hands on the floor, unable to stand up in shock, and tried to squeeze out a trembling voice. Then of course I won't have a room in the house. Oh, I'll have all this stuff removed right away. Akiyoshi let out a shriek-like voice. Wait a minute. I'm Momoko's husband. We're married, so we share the assets. Ah, we need to talk about that. I smiled and pointed to a document that was sitting on the desk. It was a copy of the divorce papers that had been officially accepted. Kiyoyoshi, we've been divorced for a long time. Ayoshi was frozen with her mouth open. Next to her, her mother-in-law looked like she couldn't accept the reality. We had completed the procedures properly before we bought the house. Therefore, you have no right to live in this house or to the property. When I said that coldly, the two of them collapsed to their knees. Why are you being so selfish? I thought back on what we'd done, and Akiyoshi had left his mother-in-law selling off my personal belongings without permission, and had even tried to kick out Akemi by handing her divorce papers every time she refused. What reason do we have to be shy with people like that? But I sold my house. I carefully invested all my assets in order to live with Kiyoshi. My mother-in-law's face was twisted and she cried out in a half-shouting voice. But my heart didn't waver at all. That's your decision. It has nothing to do with me. Akiyoshi clung to his mother as if clinging to her. It seems that even this tree is all about Mom. Mom, what should we do? We have no place to live. I looked down at their pathetic appearance quietly. To Tsuyoshi, pack your things and get out. If you don't, I'll call the police for trespassing. The moment I told them that, I could see their faces turning pale. Don't mess with me. This is all a scam. You deceived me, didn't you? No, it was you who were deceived, blinded by your own greed. The two of them stood up unsteadily and left the hotel room, spitting out the lines. Their backs were small and pitiful, and kunakata. After seeing Rinko off, I relaxed on the sofa and opened the monitoring screen I had prepared. There, I saw Akiyoshi and Teiko frantically packing their belongings at home. The high-end furniture, home appliances, and the futon they had brought in were all treated like garbage. The two of them tried their best to take them out, breaking and dropping everything in a panic. Do your best. Akiyoshi and his mother-in-law's hell is just beginning. A few weeks later, I sent a certified letter to Akiyoshi and his mother-in-law through my lawyer. The letter was a request for compensation for the mental distress they had suffered from them, and for the return and compensation of the personal belongings that their mother-in-law had sold without their permission. It was a well-deserved punishment. The two of them had temporarily taken refuge in a weekly apartment in Tokyo after leaving their first encounter. However, I heard that they could not bear the high cost of living and eventually moved to an older apartment. Compensation, moving expenses, and daily living expenses. Akiyoshi's savings were quickly depleted as expenses came one after another. To make matters worse, his mother-in-law took an outrageous action. Apparently, right after moving, the followers of the Shinkyo religion contacted her again. And her mother-in-law, who was mentally cornered, easily converted. She was told that she would be saved if she donated. She believed this and donated even the little money she had left to live to the cult. Her furniture and home appliances were sold off, and in the end, even Akiyoshi's suits and shoes were imprisoned. Stop it, Mom. Don't be fooled by that. No matter how many times she screamed, it didn't reach her mother-in-law. For her, who had already lost her reason, the cult was her salvation, more than her family. She was covered in debt, and even her living expenses were betrayed by her mother, who she trusted. Devastated by this reality, Akiyoshi finally realized the end of the path he had chosen. But it was too late to regret it. Special requests from financial institutions and further donations from the cult. Unable to find decent food, Akiyoshi had no choice but to live in a dingy apartment. Meanwhile, his mother-in-law lived in the cult's facility and dedicated everything she had to the cult. The reality is that the woman who once looked down on me and tried to control me is now controlled by religion. When I thought about it, I felt a little weak. It's a law. I quietly turned back to face my laptop. The next deadline is approaching. I don't have time to worry about their downfall. Meanwhile, I have finally started a new life in my dream home. It's a quiet residential area with a garden. When I wake up in the morning, the soft sunlight shines through the curtains into the living room. I have come to think that the most luxurious thing is to make coffee while looking at the garden where seasonal flowers are planted. I finally have time for myself. I think I have become closer than ever to my older brothers Kiyoshi and Rinko. Rinko comes to play with her children for various reasons. On holidays, I sometimes almost drop the authentic curry that Kiyoshi makes. Hey, why don't we have a barbecue next time? We have a garden. I agree. My kids will be very happy. That's great. Leave the food preparation to me. Such a casual exchange makes my heart warm. I lost my parents at an early age, but I'm happy to have an older brother and sister. Now that I'm nurturing the bond between my family, my work as a manga artist is going well. The manga series I've been steadily continuing has become popular, and finally, a movie director has been decided. I was so happy that tears flowed on the day I received the news from the publisher. I owe it all to the people who supported me. There's no need to cling to the past. There's no need to push yourself to be recognized by others. I can just continue doing what I like at my own pace, being myself. I got this place to live my one and only life as I want, without being hindered by anyone. I think about it as I look up at the starry sky at night. I'm sure I'll stumble from now on. I'm sure the sadness and regrets will never be zero. But I'm not the same person I was back then. I can walk firmly on this path I chose. Let's do our best tomorrow. Feeling the soft night breeze coming in through the window, I imagined myself walking powerfully towards the future.